Drag Queen Storytime returns to the Kelowna Regional Library on Saturday, January the 28th. It's bound to attract a lot of young families and little kids to hear some stories, and it's also bound to attract controversy.
I think that that's reasonable to expect. When the ORL ran our first drag story time in 2019, there were protesters and counter-protesters, so I think we would be naive to think none of that will happen. I would say my hope is that if people do have negative opinions towards the event, that they will be respectful.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Loyal, why is Drag Queen Storytime a good idea for the library?
Right. So growing up gay in Kelowna, I can speak from lived experience that when I was a youngster, there weren't any resources for me to feel like I belonged or I was part of this community. And so that's why it's so important for events like this from an inclusivity perspective, because if a young person doesn't feel like they belong in a cis heterosexual world, that they can see that other people are like them and find that in a safe place like a library, because libraries are really a place of discovery and a place of learning where people should have free access to information that they need.
Okay, now I poked my head into a story time and a drag queen story time, and I don't think there was any real discussion about sexuality, but I guess it is just that the person presents a little differently.
Yeah, I would say that that's a fair point. So I think one of the common misconceptions about drag story time and one of the common areas where people are uncomfortable with the concept is this idea that it's a really sexualized event, because that's the connotation drag queens have. But at a drag story time, it's about inclusivity and just about seeing people that are different from the norm. And I think that that's the really value point, is that if you're growing up and you're, like Loyal said, you're not a white cis member of society, I think it's really valuable to see individuals who also aren't hitting all those stereotypical points.
Already there was talk of a petition, and one of the concerns is that the children taking in one of these story times might look up the individual who is presenting story time, and there could be something there that isn't so age appropriate. So is that a concern?
What I would say is that I actually have concerns with kids being on social media in general. There's not a lot of positivity that is found in social media. And what I've said from the beginning is that it's really up to parents and guardians to ensure their children are accessing information that's appropriate for their age. That goes from information they're receiving at a library and information they're receiving online. So we've always maintained at the ORL that parents have the right to choose what information their children have access to, and I maintain that position today. If people don't want to see Drag Queen Storytime, it's scheduled outside of normal storytime hours in the library, and they simply don't have to attend.
Right. So if an event like this does prompt a discussion about sexuality, I guess some families may or may not be comfortable with that happening at that age, and that's up to them.
Yeah, I would say it's, as Loyal said, it's really up to the families if this is a program that they think would benefit their families and maybe benefit some of those discussions taking place, or if that's something that you as a family are not comfortable with or don't want to do with your family yet, then it's a voluntary program and maybe it's not the program for you. So, yeah.
So is it still open for discussion, or is the drag queen story time going to happen?
So the Drag Queen Storytime is scheduled and it is planning to move ahead. And this is part of the Community Readers Program. So if there are members of the community that feel like they would like to apply to read vetted stories to children, and I say vetted because librarians have to vet the information that is read to children, they can apply, and applications are open right now. So if you're a firefighter or a police person or a nurse, you can apply and you too can read to children. It's not exclusive to drag queens.
Right.